Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to get straight to the heart of things, really pull up that key knowledge without all the overwhelm.
Yeah, cutting through the noise.
Exactly. We know you're after those aha moments, the insights that actually stick.
And that's what we aim for.
So today, we're diving deep into Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. We got requests about, understanding consciousness better, why we suffer, and finding some inner peace, basically.
Right, in the middle of everything life throws at us. And the power of now, it really hits on that core desire for stillness, doesn't it?
It really does.
What's really striking, I think, is where it came from for Tolle, his own really intense personal journey.
Yeah, tell us about that. It wasn't just an academic exercise for him.
Not at all. He went through this period of profound distress, really deep despair, even suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
And then one night, this pivotal moment, he became aware of this thought just circling in his head. I cannot live with myself any longer.
Okay, wait. I cannot live with myself. That sounds almost paradoxical.
Exactly. He suddenly saw this split. There was the I, the observer, and then there was this self that was making him miserable, the one he couldn't live with.
It's like realizing there are two entities in your head and one is driving the other crazy.
Precisely. And that realization it stomped his mind. Completely still. He described it as being pulled into this void, this energy vortex.
Sounds pretty terrifying initially.
Oh, he said it was. But then came this sense of surrender, of letting go. And when he woke up the next morning, everything was different.
How so?
Just this profound sense of peace, of consciousness. Everything felt alive, sacred, intensely blissful, like seeing the world for the first time.
Incredible. So that personal furnace forged these ideas he later shared.
That's the root of it.
Right. So for our deep dive today, our mission really is to pull out those key insights from Tolle's experience and the book. We want to pinpoint the practical pathways he suggests for connecting with the present moment.
And, maybe breaking free from those mental loops we all get stuck in.
Exactly. So where do we start? What's the first big idea?
I think the most foundational one is you are not your mind.
Okay, that's a big one. And probably one that makes people go, huh, what do you mean? Our thoughts feel like the core of who we are.
Right. But Tolle argues the mind is really just a tool. And honestly, for most of us, it's a tool that's running the show, often not very helpfully.
Running riot, maybe?
Yeah, pretty much. He estimates like 80 to 90% of typical thinking is repetitive, kind of useless, and often negative or harmful. Just think about that inner commentary.
It's like mental static half the time, or worse.
Exactly. It's a constant energy drain.
He uses some good analogies for this, doesn't he? I remember the one about the dog chewing a bone.
Yeah. The mind just loves to chew on problems, just like the dog loves the bone.
Or the atom bomb one. Just because the mind can figure out how to build something incredibly complex, even destructive, doesn't mean that you, the conscious being, are that process.
Those really help illustrate it. And they lead to this really critical question he asks. Can you actually choose to stop thinking whenever you want? Have you found the off switch for that internal chatter?
For most people, probably not, right? That voice just goes.
It just keeps going. Yeah. And that's exhausting, isn't it? It fuels so much stress.
Definitely. But he's not saying the goal is a totally blank mind, like zero thoughts ever. That sounds, impossible. And maybe not even useful.
No, that's a common misunderstanding. His idea of enlightenment isn't about becoming, less than human below thought. It's about rising above the involuntary noise.
Okay.
So in that state of heightened awareness, you absolutely still use your mind for practical stuff, for planning, problem solving.
But it's a focused tool then.
Exactly. It's a tool you pick up when you need it, rather than this thing that's constantly hammering away in the background. You can move between focused thought and what he calls no mind.
No mind meaning just pure awareness.
Stillness.
Yeah, consciousness without the constant stream of thinking, an underlying stillness. And here's a really interesting point he makes. He suggests that genuine creativity, those real insights, they don't actually come from all that mental churning.
Right. They come from connecting to something deeper, this broader field of consciousness. It's like quieting the mind creates the space for something genuinely new to pop in.
Otherwise, thought just becomes repetitive, stale.
Or even destructive if it's cut off from that deeper awareness. Which leads us nicely into the next big idea, the now as the way out of pain.
Okay, the now, the present moment. How does that relate to pain and suffering?
Well, Tolle's argument is that any pain we create in the present, Not necessarily physical pain from an injury, but psychological suffering. It always comes down to some form of non-acceptance.
Resistance.
Yes, resistance to what is. Right now, it shows up as judgment in our thoughts or negative emotions bubbling up.
So the more we're lost in our heads, arguing with reality.
The more we suffer, it's almost a direct correlation. The more identified you are with your mind and its judgments, the more pain you experience.
And the flip side.
The flip side is, the more you can just honor and accept the present moment exactly as it is, the more you start to free yourself from that suffering and from the grip of the egoic mind.
He also brings in this concept, it sounds a bit unusual, the pain body.
Ah, yes, the pain body. It does sound a bit sci-fi, maybe.
A little. What is it?
Think of it like all the leftover emotional pain from your past, sadness, anger, fear, resentment, that it hasn't been fully faced and processed. It sort of clumps together energetically.
Okay.
And it forms this semi-autonomous energy field within you. And here's the kicker. It wants to survive.
Like a parasite.
In a way, yeah. It survives by getting you to unconsciously identify with it. It triggers situations or thoughts that resonate with its old pain, so it can feed off that negative energy.
So if you find yourself repeatedly getting drawn into, say, pointless arguments or feeling waves of old sadness, that could be the pain body looking for its next meal.
That's exactly Tolle's point. It thrives on drama, anger, victimhood.
Yeah.
Anything that matches its vibrational frequency.
Yikes. So how do you stop feeding it? How do you break free?
Not by fighting it directly. That
Yeah.
usually just creates more conflict, more pain.
Right, like fighting darkness with darkness, you said earlier.
Exactly. The key is consciousness, awareness. You have to watch it. Observe the feeling in your body, observe the negative thoughts it triggers, but without judging them or getting swept away.
Become the observer.
Yes, you shine the light of your awareness onto it. Just acknowledge, there's the pain body. That simple act of witnessing, of non-judgmental observation, starts to transmute its energy. Consciousness dissolves the unconsciousness.
So it's about presence, bringing your attention to that feeling without adding a story to it.
That's the core of it. Okay,
Yeah.
so how do we actually do that? How do we move more deeply into this state of presence, now do we need to analyze our minds constantly?
Good question, because it feels like understanding the problem should be the first step.
Well, Tolle actually argues against getting lost in endless mental analysis. He says the problems of the mind can't really be solved at the level of the mind.
Interesting. So you don't need a PhD in your own neuroses.
No. He suggests that just understanding the basic mechanism, that identification with the mind creates the ego, which thrives on psychological time and resists the ego. Now that understanding is often enough to start the shift.
Because the ego actually likes analyzing problems.
Yeah, it reinforces its sense of self. It needs problems, conflicts, things to define itself against.
Yeah.
It gets unconsciously invested in pain and suffering because that's familiar territory. It strengthens its illusion.
That's kind of disturbing, but it makes sense when you think about how resistant people can be to letting go of their grievances.
Absolutely. And Tolle points out this isn't some new age idea. He draws parallels to ancient wisdom traditions.
Like what?
Think about teachings across different spiritual paths that consistently point to the present moment. Biblical lines about take no thought for the morrow, or let the dead bury their dead, or considering the lilies of the field.
They just are, effortlessly present.
Exactly. These aren't just philosophical musings. They're practical instructions for shifting consciousness. Live them. Don't just think about them.
So it's about pulling our attention out of psychological time, that constant mental loop of past regrets and future worries.
Precisely. And anchoring ourselves right here, right now. He describes this dynamic. Identification with the mind creates more psychological time. It fuels the past-future preoccupation.
Giving it energy?
Yeah, but observing the mind, witnessing it without getting caught up, actually withdraws that energy.
Yeah.
And that opens the door to timelessness, to presence.
And being present doesn't mean being passive or ineffective.
Quite the opposite. He argues that presence actually enhances your ability to use the mind when you need it. Thoughts become clearer, more focused, more creative when they arise from that place of stillness.
And all that background noise, the anxiety, the guilt, the stress, the vague dissatisfaction.
Tolle attributes all negativity, essentially, to this accumulation of psychological time and the denial of the present moment. It's a rejection of what is.
He makes a really useful distinction, too, between our life situation and our actual life.
Yes, that's key. Your life situation exists in time. It's your history, your future plans, your problems, your story. It's mind stuff.
But your life...
Your life is always now.
Yeah.
It's this moment. It's the only thing that's ever truly real. So he encourages asking, do I have a problem right now, this very second? Not yesterday, not potential next week, but now.
Usually the answer is no, isn't it? In the immediate moment, we're typically okay.
Often, yes. The problem is usually a mental projection onto the now.
And he sees this shift towards presence as more than just personal self-help, right? He frames it as something bigger.
Oh, definitely. He talks about it as a co-creative process, something humanity needs to participate in for our collective evolution. A leap in consciousness, maybe even, he suggests, our only real hope for survival, given how destructive the unobserved egoic mind can be.
Wow. Okay, that raises the stakes. So let's talk about the joy of being. How do we know if we're actually accessing this state? What does it feel like?
He gives a very simple benchmark, actually. Just notice, is there joy, ease, and lightness in what you're doing right now?
Simple, but profound.
If those qualities are missing, if it feels like a struggle, a burden, that's a pretty clear sign you've slipped back into psychological time, resisting the now.
But wait, does that mean if my job feels like a drag, I should just quit? Or if washing dishes boring, I should stop?
Not necessarily. That's an important clarification. It doesn't always mean changing what you're doing. Often, it means changing how you're doing it, changing your inner state of being while doing it.
Bringing presence to the task itself.
Exactly. When that compulsive striving for the next thing eases off, when your attention rests in the bill. Now, this underlying joy of being, which he describes as inherent, a deep peace, starts to flow into whatever you're doing, even mundane tasks.
And you become less obsessed with the outcome.
Yes, less attached to results. Success or failure doesn't rock your inner state nearly as much because your sense of well-being isn't dependent on them.
So your sense of self shifts too. It's not coming from your personal past, your achievements or failures.
It starts coming from being itself, from that deeper, timeless dimension. And the need to constantly become something else to fix yourself starts to diminish because, on that deeper level, you realize you are already whole, already complete.
That's a huge shift. Now, you mentioned earlier different levels of unconsciousness. Can we unpack that a bit? There's ordinary unconsciousness.
Yeah, that's kind of the baseline state for many people, unfortunately. It's being identified with your thoughts, your emotions, your likes and dislikes, the constant mental commentary.
The background static.
Right. Often there's this low-level hum of unease, dissatisfaction, boredom. It's so constant we might not even notice it. It's just normal.
Until something shakes it up, which brings us to deep unconsciousness.
Yes. This is a much more intense state. It typically gets triggered when the ego feels threatened or during major life challenges, losses, conflicts.
And that's when the really strong negative emotions come out.
Exactly. Intense anger, fear, depression, aggression. Often, this is when the pain body gets activated and takes over. Tolle links extreme acts, like physical violence, directly to this state of deep unconsciousness.
He told that story about the Native American chief observing white settlers.
Oh, yeah, that's powerful. How they always seemed restless, always wanting something, looking for something in the future, never seeming truly content in the present.
It really captures that collective unease, that loss of connection to just being.
It does. And Tolle's antidote is constant self-observation, developing the habit of checking in. Am I at ease right now? What's going on inside me? Making your inner state the primary focus.
Because resisting what is just creates more unhappiness.
Yes, and not just for you. He argues that inner conflict, that negativity, actually pollutes your own being and contributes to the collective human psyche, the collective dysfunction.
And he backs that up with that chilling statistic about the 20th century. Over 100 million deaths from human violence.
It's staggering, a stark reflection of that deeply negative unconscious state running rampant. But crucially, he always brings it back to the now. Sanity, healing, peace. They're available right now.
And he gives those 3 clear choices when things feel unbearable, right?
Yes. If your here and now feels intolerable, you have 3 options. 1, remove yourself from the situation. 2, take action to change it. Or 3, totally accept it.
The key being to choose now and accept the consequences without adding more negativity, more resistance.
Exactly. No complaining, no victimhood. And he specifically calls out waiting as a state of mind.
How so? Waiting seems normal.
But often, waiting is mentally rejecting the present while wanting the future. It creates this inner conflict between where you are and where you want to be.
Ah, I see. It's a subtle form of resistance. And he contrasts our outer purpose goals, achievements in the future.
With our inner purpose, which is always about deepening our connection to being right here in the now. That inner journey, he says, really only has one step.
The one you're taking right now.
Always. This step contains all other steps. It's all there is.
Okay, this feels like a good point to talk about the practical tools, the portals into the now he describes. How do we actually access this state more readily?
Right, these are like practical access points. Conscious breathing is a big one, just feeling the breath flow in and out.
Simple, but it does create a gap in the thought stream, doesn't it?
It really does. Another is intense alertness, really looking at something like a flower or a stone, or listening intently without any mental labels or commentary, just pure perception.
Baking it all in.
Yes. Then there's focusing attention on the inner body.
What does he mean by that? The physical sensations?
More the subtle feeling of aliveness, the energy field within the physical form. Feeling your hands from the inside, for example, is a very powerful anchor in the present.
Anchoring yourself in the physical now.
Exactly. And stillness, becoming aware of the quiet pauses between sounds, the stillness underneath movement, both external and internal.
And silence, similarly.
Yes, silence and space are closely related portals. Becoming aware of the silence behind the sounds or the empty space around objects. This can lead you to sense the inner space of no mind, the unmanifested pure consciousness itself.
The backdrop.
The backdrop, exactly. Even contemplate nothingness, not trying to grasp it intellectually, but just accepting the void, the emptiness from which everything arises. That can be a gateway too.
And fundamentally, all these portals work because they bring your attention.
Right back to the present moment. The now is the ultimate portal. He even mentions conscious death briefly.
As a portal.
As an involuntary brief portal that opens at the moment of physical death. A glimpse of the unmanifested. But he suggests that without prior practice, prior awareness of that dimension, fear and attachment usually cause us to miss that opportunity.
Interesting. Okay, let's tackle surrender. That word can rub people the wrong way. It sounds passive, like giving up.
It really can. People hear surrender and think defeat, fatalism, apathy. But that's absolutely not what Tolle means.
So what does he mean?
For him, surrender is simply the intelligent acceptance of what is, yielding to the present moment, letting go of inner resistance to it.
And that doesn't mean you can't take action.
Not at all. It's perfectly compatible with action, with pursuing goals. He calls it surrendered action. When you act from the place of acceptance, of non-resistance, your actions are infused with a different quality, a different energy, the energy of being.
So the action becomes more effective, more joyful.
Yes, often both. True positive change, he argues, can only really arise from that surrendered state of consciousness. Fighting reality just creates more friction.
So surrender dissolves that inner negativity, that resistance.
Exactly. And then either the external situation changes more easily, or you find you've risen above it internally. You're no longer hooked by it. Either way, you're free.
And this applies to relationships too.
Profoundly. Surrender means accepting others as they are in this moment, without needing them to change for you, without trying to use them to meet your ego's needs, letting them be.
That's huge. He also talks about limit situations like major illness, loss, disaster.
Yes, moments where life basically forces you to your knees. These can be incredibly powerful, albeit painful, opportunities. They can shatter the ego's resistance and force a kind of surrender.
Creating an opening for transformation.
A profound opening. A chance to let go of the past and step into a different reality. When you face intense pain, the way through isn't fighting it or analyzing it, but feeling it fully.
Feeling it without the story.
Yes, without the mental labels, the victim narrative, just bringing the pure light of your consciousness, your presence to the raw sensation, the raw emotion.
And forgiveness fits in here too, doesn't it? True forgiveness.
Yes, he defines true forgiveness as recognizing that nothing done to you can truly touch who you are on that deeper level. It's letting the negativity, the hurt pass through you without resistance, realizing there's ultimately nobody there to get hurt anymore.
That sounds like invulnerability.
In a sense, not needing to defend a fragile ego image.
Yeah.
Being rooted in your own being. And ultimately, enlightenment, he says, is just this total acceptance of what is.
Like that Zen butcher story you mentioned.
Exactly. Every piece of meat I have is the best. When you accept this moment fully, this is the best moment, because it's the only one there is.
And from that acceptance, things like compassion arise naturally.
Yes. When you go beyond the mind's labels and judgments, beyond opposites, you connect with the deeper reality in others too. You see beyond their personality, their form, and you sense their being. You recognize suffering as ultimately an illusion caused by identification with form.
Okay, finally, he touches on some pretty big picture ideas toward a different order of reality. Even physical immortality comes up.
He does touch on it, yeah. But he frames it within the context of the egoic mind creating the illusion of both a separate body and death. They're part of the same illusion. You can't cling to one, the body, without implicitly accepting the other, death.
So the body, while illusory in that ultimate sense, is our current access point.
It's our point of access to our true nature within the illusion, yes. He describes the world we perceive through the ego as just one interpretation, a limited slice of the vast energy dance of the universe.
Different consciousness creates different realities.
Different frequencies, perceive different worlds, you could say, but ultimately it's all one reality. His main point, though, is always to focus on the causal level.
Which is?
Consciousness itself, enlightenment, inner peace. That, he believes, is the most precious gift we can offer the world.
Wow. Okay. So bringing this deep dive on the power of now to a close, the core message feels incredibly direct, really.
It is. The power to fundamentally change your experience of life isn't out there somewhere. It's right here, right now.
In this present moment. And it starts with seeing beyond the limits of our own thinking minds, recognizing who we truly are beneath the chatter.
Exactly. It's an inward journey. It might not always feel easy, stepping out of old habits of mind.
But the potential payoff is immense, isn't it? Real peace, real joy, a much deeper understanding of everything.
That's the promise.
So, as a final thought for everyone listening, maybe just consider this. Where in your own daily life, maybe without even realizing it, are you resisting the present moment? What small shift in awareness, just a gentle turning towards the practical, now could potentially make a difference in your experience today?
Yeah, just something to observe, to play with in your own time.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.